Hi everyone, I'm Heather Wen. I'm a retired nurse practitioner and the founder and practitioner at Arizona Healing Alternatives. On this channel, you'll find several videos, what I like to call aha moments or aha minutes, where we'll be discussing issues that impact your health. So whether you decide to use alternative medicine, Western medicine, or even a mix of both, I'm passionate about you knowing what your healthcare options are. If you like what you see, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. In this upcoming series, I'm going to be talking to you about some different healing modalities, what I like to call understanding your healthcare options. So we're going to talk a little bit about Western medicine in the first part, then we're going to talk about acupuncture, energy medicine in the third part, and in the fourth part, we're going to be talking about applied kinesiology in the framework of total body modification, followed by hypnosis. The reason why I want to cover these issues is because I want you to know if you're thinking about using something or you don't want to use something, you'll have a little bit of a background, obviously not an extensive background, but a little bit of a background to know what you want to try and what you don't want to try. Basically then, let's go into what is this energy medicine and what does it involve, okay? When we think of energy medicine, first of all, the way it's defined is it's defined by, it's considered a branch of alternative medicine. Now, alternative medicine means in place of. My practice is named Arizona Healing Alternatives. I use the term alternative as complementary, like it can be used in conjunction with, but technically alternative is in place of. If you look at the definitions from the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, it separates energy medicine into verifiable results or veritable energy and non-verifiable results or putative energy. So some examples that they give of this when I was looking this up is they call what we can prove veritable magnet therapy. Now what's interesting about that is I was looking at that and I looked at it again and thought, magnet therapy. Well, magnets is running magnets on you. I'm thinking, in my terms, MRI, magnetic resonance imagery. I'm thinking about, putting you in a tube and then having the magnets read that, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about that we actually can prove that, which you can see I'm even skeptical of that, right? But basically, magnet therapy, color puncture, I have no idea what that is. And light therapy. Light therapy, I understand though. Light therapy, if you think about it, when we know that people who live in areas where, unlike Arizona, where we get all this beautiful sunshine, that there can be depression and other things if you don't get enough sunlight, but also I think of light therapy, especially from where I came from, when babies are newborns and get jaundice. And if you've heard of putting them under the Billy lights, we put them under little lights that break down the red blood cells and help them process that in their liver to get rid of the jaundice. So what they say is putative or not provable is therapeutic touch, healing touch. Have you guys heard of Reiki? Some other things that we can't prove. Great, people have heard of that. Qigong, even I would say Tai Chi would be considered you can't prove it. So there's a lot of different things. So this gets me thinking about provability. And as I start thinking about provability, it takes me back to a time when I had a really bad auto accident. When I was 19 years old, I was rear-ended off a freeway. Okay. And when that happened, I ended up cracking the windshield with my head. Thank goodness I had a seatbelt on, or I would have been out of that car. I would have been ejected out. Right? When that happened, I was sitting in front of my physician who said, okay, you're out for a year. You can't do anything. I had herniated discs, I had problems, neck injuries, all sorts of problems. And they looked at me and said, and back then, because this was, a long time, about 30 years ago, they basically said that, okay, you're on bed rest, you can't do anything, no school, no working, and it was a year. And during that time, the physician looked at me and said, okay, well, you'll probably need a really good massage, so let's send you to physical therapy. And physical therapy back then, 30 years ago, was considered cute. It wasn't considered standard like it is today. Right? It was considered something nice, go get a massage, you're going to be in pain, let's go do some physical therapy. So when I look at scientific things and what we can prove and what we can't and what we've been prescribing over the years, physical therapy now, we know all the science behind it, we know how good it is, we know that it's now almost standard of practice. So that's one thing I was thinking about. The other thing are two very important things that came out recently, and I'm so glad. If we look at provability once again, I love what Albert Einstein said, because I think he's a pretty smart guy. And Albert Einstein says, whether you can observe a thing or not depends on the theory which you use. It's the theory which decides what can be observed. That's a very profound statement. Because if I go into a study and I design it in a certain way to see what outcome I'm going to get, it depends on what the construct is of that study as to what I'm going to look at and see what comes out from it, correct? So that being the case, what I'm thrilled with, and this is actually on my website, the full articles, but I'll have them up here at the end if you want to take a look at it. But I've put in two very important things that I think we all need to look at. These are the links to that. I'm so excited to see some of this stuff come out. Well, the first thing is an article from the Stanford Medical Journal. And I'm so happy that Stanford came out with this. For those of you who are around when the hormone replacement scandal broke wide open in the 90s, okay, great, remember that, fantastic. I was practicing during that time, handing out hormone replacement therapy, and I knew something was wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't quite put my finger on what was going on, it was just a gut feeling. And ultimately, Stanford now has come out with this article. Can you repeat that? And what this article is about, now I'm not Oliver Stone and I'm not into all conspiracy theories, but this article mentions who designs the study and how it is designed in and of itself can skew how the results come out. Interesting concept. The other interesting concept on it is, and they sort of touch on this, is that if the pharmaceutical industry, and don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-Western medicine, I'm not anti-drug, and I have friends who are drug reps, but ultimately, if I'm a pharmaceutical company and I'm paying a university to do that study, okay, heads are nodding. That's a conflict of interest, isn't it? A bit? And that's a wide statement. Please don't sue me, drug companies. When it comes down to it, I'm not saying that that means the results are skewed and that's what happens. What I'm saying is that's not how studies used to be done. And in this article, can you repeat that? They've started to take some of these studies and some of these drugs or some outcomes from surgeries, and they're looking at this and saying, we're trying to reproduce the results of the original study and we're not getting the same thing. And Stanford's actually outed themselves saying, yeah, we were funded too. This is what happened. So this is a very interesting read when we talk about our science and where it comes from. It doesn't mean that all of our stuff is skewed or that all of the stuff in Western medicine is bad. It doesn't mean that at all. But what it means is we need to question. We need to question and know what's right for us and where our science comes from. The other article that I love, and this just came out in summer of 2016. The other article that I love, we used to tell patients when they come into the office and they had depression as an example, and they had depression, we would tell them, we knew going outside would help. We'd say, you know, it might be good if you went into the garden, you do that. And I thought at the time that that came out because of sunlight. We talked about the sun, and we talked about, you know, how helpful it is to get sunlight. So I thought it had to do with that. But then I kept hearing buzzings about sticking your hands in the dirt. I'm not going to suggest to you when you walk up to me, how you're depressed, go stick your hands in the dirt, have a good time, let me know if it works. Okay, that sounds good. But ultimately what happened was, we were saying, but people say, well, I garden with, you know, gloves on. I'm like, no, you need to stick your hands in the dirt, and we didn't know why. All of a sudden, this is called the Nature Cure, and this came out of the Atlantic. This came out in October of 2015. Guess what? They did a study, and they found that if we think about the skin is the biggest receptor organ of our body. It's an organ. And if you think about that, it absorbs things. We would put lotion on, right? We have lotions or patches for hormone replacement or patches for nicotine. It absorbs. What they found was there's a mycobacterium in the soil that is absorbed through the skin. And guess what it secretes? It secretes serotonin. The very thing that's an antidepressant. So now I feel a lot more comfortable if you come in and you're depressed, telling you to stick your hands in the dirt. Okay? But I didn't feel very comfortable until I had the science. But yet it still existed and it was there. Okay? So things that we can't necessarily prove, or maybe we can prove them but we haven't studied them yet because, you know, we don't study these things. And a lot of you can come up with why you think the reason for that is. But ultimately, what I'm really happy of is that U of A, University of Arizona, Gary Schwartz down there, is starting to study some of this woo-woo stuff. And what I love was one of the studies that he did was he separated out and he found that he took a Reiki practitioner, a Reiki master. Now Reiki, what oftentimes they do is it's movement of energy, but it's not, oftentimes it's not putting the hands on the body. Okay, and have some of you heard of that? It's wonderful. And what's interesting with it is that he put in a room a group of people who had a sham practitioner, a practitioner that had no training whatsoever but was a good actor or actress. And then what he did was he had a Reiki master. And he hooked up their hands to see what type of frequency, what type of energy frequency came out their hands. Now, with the practitioner, the sham practitioner, he noticed, you know, it was one specific frequency. And it stayed the same, no changes. It was 2.1, I believe, gigahertz. And he showed that in the Reiki practitioner, the energy was moving. That hertz is going back and forth and changing all over the place. So what did that prove? Something different is happening, right? So he's starting to study some of this stuff, which I think is wonderful.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see the whole entire talk that covers all the different modalities that we're going to discuss in this series, as well as my own experience with them, please watch the video, Energy Medicine or Woo-Woo, a Nurse Practitioner Story. It'll give you the entire story. Once again, if you like what you've seen, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. You can also hit the notification bell so that when other videos come out, you'll be notified. You can also leave comments or questions that you have, and I will respond to them. Once again, thanks for listening and have a great day.